Hey, everybody. Ready for a deep dive into something super relevant for all of us, I think?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Today, we're going to be talking all about emotional intelligence
Nice.
and using this awesome video transcript from the Awaken Your Potential YouTube channel as our guide.
Okay, cool.
I'm really intrigued by how they make emotional intelligence seem so practical.
Mhm.
Like they lay out all these techniques we can actually use in our daily lives to, become more emotionally intelligent.
I think that's so important
Mhm.
because for so long, the focus has been so much on IQ. Like
Mhm.
that's the be-all, end-all measure of intelligence.
Yeah.
But, increasingly people are realizing that emotional intelligence, that ability to understand and manage emotions
Yeah.
is really crucial for success
In every aspect of life, it sounds like.
in every aspect. Yeah, personally and professionally.
Yeah. I've always sort of thought of emotions as these unpredictable things that just kind of happen to us. But this video presents this really interesting perspective. It's almost like we can become the architects of our own emotional landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not about suppressing your emotions or becoming like emotionless.
Right.
It's really about developing those skills to better navigate.
The whole complex world of
That's
feelings.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, so let's get started by, sort of laying the groundwork here.
Sure.
How does Awaken Your Potential define emotional intelligence? What does it actually mean to be emotionally intelligent?
Well, they start by highlighting this really important distinction between just being emotional versus actually possessing emotional intelligence.
Okay,
So it's
interesting.
not just about, feeling things deeply,
Right.
but it's about recognizing, understanding, and then managing those emotions.
So it's not enough to just be like, oh, I'm a very sensitive person.
Right.
There's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about, being swept away by your feelings, but learning how to kind of ride those waves.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's about, developing that self-awareness to be like, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
And then choosing how to respond.
Because a lot of times I think we just react.
Exactly. That's the key difference, right? That ability to choose your response rather than just reacting impulsively.
So it's that pause.
That pause, that's what emotional intelligence gives you.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, how does this actually play out in our lives? Why is emotional intelligence so important?
Well, think about it. Emotions touch every single aspect of our lives, right? Our relationships, our work, our overall well-being.
So, it's not just about being happy all the time.
No, not at all.
There's more to it.
It's about understanding the full range of emotions and how they impact our thoughts and behaviors.
Okay, so give me an example. Like, how would someone with high emotional intelligence handle, say, a conflict?
Well, they might be better at resolving conflicts because they can actually understand where the other person is coming from,
Even if they don't agree.
even if they don't agree exactly. And that allows them to communicate more effectively, find common ground.
Okay, so it's not just about, like, winning the argument.
No, it's about finding a solution that works for everyone involved.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be really valuable in all sorts of situations, not just conflict resolution.
Absolutely. And, the video also talks about how emotional intelligence can lead to better decision making, especially under pressure.
Oh, that's a good one because I know when I'm stressed, I do not make good decisions.
Right. Exactly. But if you can regulate your emotions, you're much more likely to make sound decisions in those high pressure situations.
So emotional intelligence gives us that ability to like pause.
To pause, take a breath, and then assess the situation clearly and choose the best course of action.
That's so powerful. I mean, it really does sound like emotional intelligence is this kind of like secret weapon for navigating all of life's challenges.
I love that. A secret weapon that we can all learn to wield.
Yes. Okay. So, how do we do that? What are some of the techniques that Awaken Your Potential recommends?
Well, they start with something really simple, but surprisingly powerful. Mindful breathing.
I have heard a lot about mindful breathing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've always been a bit skeptical. I'm like, does it really make that much of a difference?
It really does. Think about what happens when you get stressed or anxious.
Oh, I know.
Your breathing gets all shallow and rapid, right?
Totally.
Your body goes into that fight or flight mode.
Like a panic attack almost.
Yeah, exactly. But with mindful breathing, you're consciously slowing down your breath,
Well-
taking those deep, intentional inhales and exhales.
Okay.
And that simple act actually sends a signal to your nervous system to calm down, to relax.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like hitting the reset button for your mind and body.
That's a great way to put it. And the
Yeah.
beauty of it is it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
The video recommends a simple technique like inhale for a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6.
Okay, I can handle that.
Yeah.
Even on like the busiest, craziest day, I can spare a few seconds to breathe. Okay, so mindful breathing check. What's next?
They suggest getting a little introspective and starting an emotional journal.
Okay, I remember trying that in high school, writing down all my teenage angst.
Sure.
But I don't know if I'd say it led to any major breakthroughs.
Well, it's not just about venting or complaining.
Okay.
It's really about deepening your self-awareness through reflection.
Okay, so how is this approach different?
So they suggest taking a few minutes each day to just pause and really consider, what emotions did I experience today? What triggered those emotions? And then how did those emotions influence my thoughts and actions?
So it's almost like we're becoming detectives of our own emotional lives.
Yeah, exactly.
We're trying to solve the case of why we feel the way we feel.
Exactly. And by paying attention to those patterns, you can start to understand, what triggers certain emotions, what helps you feel good, what tends to send you down a negative spiral.
That makes a lot more sense. I like this approach a lot better than just, like wallowing in my feelings or whatever.
It's about gaining insights that can actually help you make positive changes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, emotional journal added to the list. What other techniques does this deep dive have in store?
All right, get ready to challenge those negative thought patterns because we're moving on to cognitive reframing.
Cognitive reframing. Okay, that sounds a little complicated. What is that?
It's actually much simpler than it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as the art of shifting your perspective. It's about consciously choosing to view a situation from a more positive or helpful angle.
So instead of focusing on what's going wrong, we're looking for the opportunity or the lesson.
Exactly. They give a great example in the video. Imagine you receive some critical feedback at work.
Oh, yeah.
Your initial reaction might be to feel defensive or discouraged.
Yeah, for sure.
But with cognitive reframing, you could actually choose to see that feedback as valuable information that can help you grow and improve.
So instead of taking it personally, you're using it as fuel for growth.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And the more you practice this technique, the more resilient you become. You start to see challenges as stepping stones rather than roadblocks.
I need to practice this one. I think I get stuck in those negative thought loops way too easily.
It's a skill that takes time and effort, but the payoff is huge.
Okay, noted. All right, what's next?
Now, get ready to embrace those uncomfortable feelings because the next technique is all about radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance. Okay, I'll be honest, that one sounds a little intimidating.
Sure.
Does that mean we just have to, put up with feeling bad?
No, not at all. It's not about resigning yourself to negativity or anything like that. It's about recognizing that those uncomfortable emotions are a part of life.
Okay.
And fighting them only makes them stronger.
Oh, so it's more about acknowledging those feelings instead of trying to push them away.
Exactly.
All right, that makes me feel a little bit better about the whole radical acceptance thing.
Yeah, it's about welcoming those emotions in listening to what they have to say and then letting them go.
So it's like we're having a conversation with our emotions rather than trying to silence them.
Exactly. And the video uses a great analogy. They say emotions are like visitors.
Okay.
You don't have to invite them to stay, but you also don't need to slam the door in their faces. Just acknowledge their presence, understand why they're there, and allow them to pass through.
I really like that analogy. I think that's going to make radical acceptance a lot less scary for me.
Good.
Okay, what else? What other techniques are we exploring on this emotional intelligence journey?
All right, ready to create your own mental oasis?
Oh, yes.
Always.
Always.
Right, so Awaken Your Potential talks about the power of guided visualization.
Oh, I love guided visualization.
Yeah.
It's like a little mini vacation for your mind.
Exactly.
How does that tie into emotional intelligence?
Well, it's all about training your mind to find calm and balance even amidst the chaos of everyday life.
Okay.
So the video suggests finding a place that brings you peace, whether it's a quiet forest, a tranquil beach, or even just a cozy corner in your home. And closing your eyes and imagining yourself there, engaging all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel?
I'm already relaxed just thinking about it.
Right. And the more you practice this, the more easily you'll be able to access that feeling of peace, even when things get stressful.
So it's like building a mental sanctuary you can retreat to whenever you need a moment of calm.
Exactly.
Okay, a mental sanctuary building officially going on my to-do list. What's next?
Okay, now for the technique they teased at the beginning of the video, the one I've been really excited to talk about.
Oh, yes.
Personal recipes for happiness.
I've been waiting for this one. Tell me everything.
All right, so It's about becoming the master chef of your own emotional experience.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we actually have the power to choose activities that evoke the emotions we want to feel.
So we're creating our own emotional menus,
Exactly.
deciding what we want to feel and then cooking it up. I love
Yeah.
that.
And the video gives some great examples.
Mhm.
If you want to feel energized and motivated, maybe you start your day with an upbeat playlist and a quick workout.
Okay, yeah.
If you're craving peace and tranquility, maybe you spend some time in nature listening to the birds sing, feeling the fresh air on your skin.
So we're becoming like emotional DJs, curating the perfect soundtrack for our day.
Exactly. And the best part is your personal recipes for happiness can be anything that brings you joy.
Mm,
Maybe it's reading a good book, spending time with loved ones, or dancing like nobody's watching.
yeah.
It's about identifying those activities that consistently lift your spirits and then making them a regular part of your life.
I am already brainstorming my happiness menu. This is brilliant. Okay, but before I get too carried away, let's do a quick recap of what we've learned so far.
Okay, so we started by defining emotional intelligence and exploring why it's so important in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And then we delved into those 5 powerful techniques, from awaken your potential mindful breathing to calm that nervous system, emotional journaling for self-reflection, cognitive reframing to shift your perspective, radical acceptance to embrace those challenging emotions, and guided visualization to cultivate that inner peace.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Yeah.
And of course, we explored that intriguing concept of personal recipes for happiness, where you get to consciously choose those activities that cultivate joy.
I'm feeling more empowered already just thinking about all these techniques.
Good.
What stood out to you the most?
I think what's most remarkable is how accessible all of this is.
Hmm.
We don't need any special equipment or expensive courses. We all have the power to start cultivating emotional intelligence right now.
That's so true. It's like we already have all these incredible tools within us. We just need to learn how to use them.
Exactly. And by actively engaging with these techniques, we're not just managing our emotions, we're actually transforming our relationship with them.
Yeah, I like that.
Turning them from potential obstacles into powerful allies on our journey of personal growth.
And on that inspiring note, welcome back. We just explored all these really cool techniques for, kind of boosting our emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of curious, how do we actually put all this into practice? How do we use this stuff in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? And the great thing is, these techniques are so versatile,
Mm.
you can really tailor them to fit different situations.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing?
Not at all. Like, let's take mindful breathing, for example.
Okay.
Maybe we talked about how it can calm your nervous system.
Hmm.
Well, you could use that before a big presentation
Mm.
to quell those pre-speech jitters, or during a tough conversation to stay grounded and present.
So it's like a secret weapon against stress.
Precisely. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes to access that calm state.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about emotional journaling? How would we use that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's not just about recording your feelings.
Right.
It's about spotting those patterns, those recurring triggers that set off certain emotions.
Like I've noticed that whenever I'm running late, I get super anxious.
Oh, yeah.
And just knowing that helps me kind of anticipate those feelings and, maybe try some mindful breathing before things even get hectic.
Exactly. That's the power of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Once you know your triggers, you can start to proactively manage them.
Okay.
Maybe you realize certain activities like spending time in nature always make you feel more grounded and joyful.
Mm.
You can prioritize those activities knowing they're not just fun, but essential for your well-being.
Yeah, I like that. It's like
Yeah.
we're creating our own personalized emotional wellness plan.
It really is. And let's not forget about cognitive reframing.
Oh, yeah, cognitive reframing. How would we use that in real life?
This technique is all about challenging those automatic negative thoughts, right? And consciously choosing to view a situation from a more positive or helpful angle.
So instead of getting stuck in that woe is me mindset, we're actively looking for the opportunity or the lesson in the situation.
Precisely. Let me give you a personal example.
Okay.
A while back, I was working on a project that I was really passionate about,
Mm.
poured my heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
But when I presented it to my team, it was met with some pretty harsh criticism.
Ouch. I can imagine that was tough to hear.
It was. My initial reaction was to feel totally deflated and discouraged.
Yeah.
But then I remembered the power of cognitive reframing.
Okay.
Instead of seeing the criticism as a personal attack, I chose to view it as an opportunity for growth.
So you shifted your perspective from I failed to how can I learn from this?
Exactly. I took a step back, analyzed the feedback, and realized that while some of it was valid, some of it stemmed from differing perspectives within the team.
Hmm.
And that realization helped me detach from the emotional sting and focus on finding solutions.
That's a great example. It shows how cognitive reframing can really turn setbacks into stepping stones.
Absolutely. It's such a powerful tool for building resilience and developing a growth mindset.
Okay, that's really helpful. Now, what about radical acceptance? I'm still a little bit unsure about that one.
Sure, well, it can be tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because it involves embracing those uncomfortable emotions that we usually try to avoid.
Right, like we're taught that we should always be happy and positive.
Exactly. But that's not realistic, is it?
Not at all.
Life is full of ups and downs, and trying to suppress or deny those difficult emotions only makes them more intense. Radical acceptance is about acknowledging those feelings with compassion and curiosity rather than judgment.
So instead of saying, I shouldn't be feeling this way, we're saying, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. Let's explore it.
Exactly. Remember that analogy of emotions being like visitors?
Yes.
We don't have to offer them a long-term lease, but we can acknowledge their presence, listen to their message, and allow them to pass through without getting too caught up in the drama.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So how would we practice that in a real-life situation?
Okay, let's say you're feeling anxious about a big upcoming event. Instead of trying to push away that anxiety, try leaning into it with curiosity.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what's triggering this feeling? Is it fear of the unknown? A worry about what others might think? Once you understand the root of the emotion, you can start to address it more effectively.
So it's like becoming an emotional detective.
Yes, investigating those feelings instead of just reacting to them.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about mindful breathing, emotional journaling, cognitive reframing, and radical acceptance. What about guided visualization? How can we fit that into our busy lives?
Yeah, well, this one is all about creating those little pockets of peace and serenity throughout your day. You don't need a whole hour of meditation to reap the benefit.
Okay, good, because I don't have a whole hour.
Right. Even just a few minutes can make a difference.
Okay.
Maybe you take a few deep breaths and visualize yourself in that peaceful forest we talked about before, an important meeting. Or use it as a way to unwind before bed, imagining yourself on that tranquil beach as you drift off to sleep.
It's like a mental power nap for your emotions.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to access that sense of calm, even when things are hectic around you.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, what about those personal recipes for happiness?
Ah, yes. This is where the fun begins.
Wow.
It's all about paying attention to what truly brings you joy. What activities leave you feeling energized, uplifted, and fulfilled? Maybe it's listening to your favorite music,
Okay.
spending time with loved ones, or getting lost in a creative project. Start by making a list of all the things that light you up, no matter how small they may seem.
It's like an inventory of all the good feeling stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then comes the experimentation phase. Start incorporating these activities into your daily or weekly routine. Pay attention to how they make you feel. Do you feel more energized after a dance class?
Okay.
More relaxed after a hot bath? More connected after spending time with friends?
It's like a science experiment for happiness.
It is. And as you gather that data, you'll start to see patterns emerge. Maybe you realize that morning walks in nature are non-negotiable for your well-being,
Okay.
or that listening to upbeat music while you get ready for work sets a positive tone for your entire day.
It's like we're becoming our own happiness alchemists, figuring out the perfect formula for a joyful life.
I love that. And remember, your personal recipes for happiness will evolve as you do. What brings you joy today might be different from what brought you joy 5 years ago.
Right?
The key is to stay curious, keep experimenting, and always be on the lookout for those things that spark your inner light.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have so many tools now to kind of deal with those everyday emotional challenges.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I'm curious, are there any potential pitfalls or challenges people might face as they try to develop their emotional intelligence?
That's a great question, and it's important to acknowledge that this is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There will be times when you slip up when you react impulsively instead of responding thoughtfully, and that's okay. The key is to be kind to yourself. View those moments as learning opportunities rather than failures.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Another challenge is that we live in a culture that often prioritizes logic over emotion.
Yeah.
We're taught to suppress our feelings to toughen up.
Right.
So unlearning those ingrained patterns can take time and effort.
It's almost like we need to rewire our brains to value emotional intelligence.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes the biggest obstacle is simply a lack of awareness. People might not even realize that emotional intelligence is a skill they can develop.
So the first step is just recognizing the importance of this whole emotional intelligence thing.
Exactly. And once you open yourself up to the possibility of growth, the world becomes your emotional intelligence classroom.
Oh, I love that. Speaking of learning opportunities, are there any resources that people can explore to further their emotional intelligence journey?
Besides the Awaken Your Potential channel we've been talking about, there are so many fantastic books, podcasts, even workshops dedicated to this topic.
Hmm.
One book that I always recommend is Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and Jean Greaves.
Okay.
It's a very practical, easy-to-read guide with tons of actionable tips.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that one. And, I think it's important to remember that everyone's journey will be different.
Absolutely.
What works for one person might not work for another, so it's all about finding what resonates with you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of connecting with others who are also on this path. Sharing experiences, supporting each other, learning from one another can be so valuable.
Yeah, that's so true. We're all in this together.
We are.
And I think that sense of community can make the journey a lot more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe by developing our own emotional intelligence, we can help create a more emotionally intelligent world.
Now that's a vision I can get behind. But before we get too carried away with saving the world, let's bring it back to our listener for a second. What's one takeaway you'd like them to walk away with from this deep dive?
If I had to choose just one, it would be this. Emotional intelligence is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the key to unlocking your full potential in every area of your life.
I love that. And I would add that this is a lifelong journey, not a one-time fix.
Right.
So be patient with yourself, celebrate those small wins, and never stop exploring.
Well said. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There are resources, communities, and people who are here to support you every step of the way.
This has been such a fascinating exploration of emotional intelligence, but we're not done yet. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll shift gears a bit and explore some real-world case studies to see how these techniques can play out in different scenarios. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive. I am so ready to see how all this emotional intelligence stuff actually works in real life.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about these techniques, but it's a whole other thing to see them in action, right?
Totally. So do you have any examples of how emotional intelligence has helped people navigate tricky situations?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Let's say we have a young professional just starting out in their career,
Okay.
and they're feeling super overwhelmed by this new job.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Right. Tons of deadlines,
Yeah.
huge workload, and they're starting to doubt their own abilities.
That's a recipe for disaster for sure.
It can be. Now, someone with low emotional intelligence might just spiral into negativity, letting those feelings of self-doubt completely take over.
Yeah, they might isolate themselves or avoid asking for help.
Exactly. Or even start making careless mistakes because they're so stressed out.
Right, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But now imagine that same person equipped with the tools of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Instead of panicking, they take a moment to practice some mindful breathing,
Okay.
calm their nervous system, gain some clarity.
Right, so they're using those techniques we talked about to sort of gain control of the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they might use their emotional journal to kind of reflect on those feelings of overwhelm. Try to pinpoint, specific triggers or patterns.
So they're becoming like an emotional detective.
Exactly. They're figuring out what's really going on.
Right.
And from there, they might decide to have a conversation with their manager,
Okay.
express their concerns, and ask for guidance.
Yeah, which is so important. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that.
They are. And they might even use some cognitive reframing
Okay.
to shift their perspective.
Yeah.
See this challenging situation as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Right, so instead of seeing it as a failure, they're seeing it as a chance to improve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by doing all of this, they're not only reducing their own stress, but they're also building stronger relationships with their colleagues and demonstrating their resilience.
Yeah. It's like they're showing that they can handle tough situations.
Exactly. And that's valuable in any workplace.
Totally. Okay, do you have any other examples? I'm loving these real-world applications.
Let's shift gears to something a little more personal.
Okay.
Think about a couple who's having a conflict. Maybe a disagreement about finances or how to spend their free time.
Yeah. That's definitely relatable.
Without emotional intelligence, this could easily turn into a huge argument,
Oh, yeah.
with both partners feeling attacked and misunderstood.
It's so easy to get defensive in those situations.
It is. But now imagine one partner takes a pause,
Okay.
and they remember the idea of radical acceptance.
Mm.
So instead of reacting defensively, they acknowledge their own feelings of frustration.
Okay.
They recognize, those emotions are valid.
Right. Everyone's entitled to their feelings.
Exactly. And then maybe they take a few deep breaths to calm down before responding.
So they're creating that space.
Yes. And from that calmer, more centered place, they can start to use empathy to try to understand their partner's perspective.
Okay, so they're not just thinking about their own side of the story.
Right. Instead of interrupting or blaming, they actually listen.
Trying to see where the other person's coming from.
Exactly.
Right.
And from that foundation of understanding, they can start to communicate more effectively,
Okay.
express their own needs, while also respecting their partner's point of view.
And maybe even find some solutions that work for both of them.
Absolutely. That's the power of emotional intelligence in relationships.
It sounds like it could be a real relationship saver.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it's not just for romantic relationships either.
Right.
This applies to friendships, family dynamics, you name it.
So the more we cultivate our emotional intelligence,
Yeah,
the better our relationships will be across the board.
exactly. So I'm really starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Me too. But I am curious, how do we make all of this a sustainable part of our lives? It's one thing to try these techniques once or twice,
Right.
but how do we make them stick?
That's a great question. And I think the key is to approach it with the same mindset as any other skill we want to develop,
Okay.
with consistency and patience. Don't try to overhaul your entire emotional repertoire overnight.
So baby steps.
Exactly. Maybe you start with mindful breathing.
Okay.
Commit to practicing for 5 minutes every morning.
Yeah.
And then once that feels like a solid habit,
Yeah.
maybe you add emotional journaling before bed.
Oh, okay. So build up slowly.
Exactly. The key is to build gradually and celebrate those small wins along the way.
Yeah. It's like we're building our emotional intelligence muscle one rep at a time.
I love that analogy.
Oh.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Mm.
Experiment with different techniques and see what resonates with you. What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's all about personalization.
It is. And one final piece of advice. Be kind to yourself. There will be days when you nail it and days when you completely fall apart.
Right.
And that's okay. It's all part of the process.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Beautifully said.
And like we were talking about earlier, it's not about doing this alone either.
Right.
There are so many resources out there.
So many.
Books, podcasts, workshops, online communities.
Find your people.
Yeah, exactly. Find your emotional intelligence support system.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been such an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I have learned so much about the power of emotions and how to, kind of harness them for good.
You too?
Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I think if I had to sum it all up, I would say this. Emotional intelligence is not a luxury. It's essential for living a fulfilling and meaningful life. It's the key to unlocking your potential, building strong relationships, and navigating this crazy human experience with more grace and resilience.
That's beautiful. I love that. So to our listener, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing. Your emotional intelligence journey is just beginning.
It is.
And we're so excited to see where it takes you.
Your potential is limitless.
And on that note, that is a wrap on our deep dive into emotional intelligence. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep asking questions, keep diving deeper, keep seeking out those moments of growth and discovery.